When I bought my property out near the woods, I did it for one reason: peace. No nosy neighbors, no HOA breathing down my neck about the length of my grass or the color of my mailbox, and certainly no one telling me where to park my own damn truck. The house wasn't big, but the land was mine. A good chunk of green with a wide gravel driveway, a solid garage for the shop, and enough distance from the nearest neighbor that I could fix up trucks in the front yard in nothing but boots and boxers, if I wanted to. That peace lasted exactly 3 months. That's when she moved in. Karen Malloy. Blonde bob, sunglasses the size of dinner plates, and a voice that could peel paint off a wall. She bought a house in the Pine Ridge Acres development, the one that borders my land on the west side. All pristine driveways, manicured lawns, and overpriced fountains that look like someone pissed off a Roman god. I didn't think much of it at first. Our lots didn't connect directly. There was a tree line and an old service road between us, but apparently that wasn't enough space for Karen. The first time I met her, she showed up at my gate holding a clipboard like she was about to audit my soul. She introduced herself as the new president of the HOA, a title she said with the smugness of someone announcing they'd just been crowned Queen of England. Then she gestured at my F-350 Super Duty parked near the tree line. My pride and joy. A beast of a truck with a matte black wrap, custom winch, and tires big enough to crush a Prius. She said it was visually disruptive and a violation of community aesthetic standards. I blinked at her. "Ma'am, I don't live in your community." She smiled like a python. "Your truck is visible from our access road. That makes it part of our shared visual environment." I told her, politely enough, that she had no jurisdiction on my property, and closed the gate. The next morning, there was a folded letter tucked under my windshield wiper. It was from the HOA, citing a $500 non-mandatory compliance fee and suggesting I relocate the vehicle out of view to maintain neighborhood integrity. I laughed, crumpled it, and tossed it straight into the burn barrel. That weekend I installed a new sign. Private property. No trespassing. Big red letters on metal. Karen saw me hammering it in and stopped her Lexus at the edge of the road. She didn't say anything, just stared like I'd hung a middle finger on a flagpole. The following week, my sign was gone. I found it lying face down behind a bush, the bolts sheared off like someone came at it with bolt cutters. So I replaced it, this time with a reinforced steel post, sunk 3 feet into concrete. Then I mounted a weatherproof motion camera on the nearby oak. I work with machines all day. I trust them more than I trust people like Karen. She came back the day after. No clipboard this time, just a tight smile and a speech about community responsibility. She asked to walk the edge of my property to assess visibility concerns. I told her the only thing she'd be assessing was how fast she could walk back to her car. She left, muttering something about non-compliant residents. I didn't answer. I had work to do, real work, the kind that fixes engines and puts food on the table. Still, as I watched her taillights disappear down the road, I had the distinct feeling this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. It started with the letters. One morning, I walked out to grab the mail and found a cream-colored envelope tucked in between my electric bill and a catalog I never asked for. No return address. Just my name, printed in stiff block letters. Inside was a typed notice on HOA letterhead, maple leaf watermark, legal-sounding language, even a fake signature from Community Compliance Division. It claimed I was in violation of multiple HOA guidelines, including vehicular obstruction of shared sightlines and unregistered use of commercial-grade machinery on residential perimeter. It ended with a second and final notice warning of escalating fines and mandatory appearance before the Community Standards Board. I don't know what bothered me more, the audacity of the thing, or the fact that someone thought I'd be dumb enough to fall for it. I don't live in Pine Ridge Acres. I never signed a damn thing. My property predates their developer-built paradise by 30 years. But now, apparently, I was being pulled into their Stepford drama like some unwanted extra in their suburban soap opera. At first, I figured it was just more passive-aggressive nonsense from Karen. A power trip, nothing more. So I tossed the letter in the shredder and went about my day. Then the next one came. This time, the envelope had a different font, but the same general message. You are hereby notified of continued non-compliance. There was even a line about refusal to cooperate with neighborhood cohesion efforts. Neighborhood cohesion. What the hell does that even mean? I decided to test something. That afternoon, I moved my truck about 10 feet further from the road, still on my property, and waited. The next morning, sure enough, another letter showed up. No postmark. It hadn't come through the USPS. Someone had delivered it by hand. So I checked the footage. The camera I'd mounted near the sign caught her clear as daylight, Karen herself, at 11:47 p.m. Hoodie pulled up, flashlight in her mouth, slipping a letter into my mailbox like she was planting contraband. She looked around twice, and even tried to reposition the flag on my box. Not only was she trespassing, she was tampering with federal mail. That's not just petty. It's illegal. The next day, I filed a complaint with the local postmaster. They took it seriously, said it would be passed to a postal inspector. Apparently, mail tampering is a federal offense that can carry jail time. That gave me a special kind of satisfaction. But Karen wasn't done. Not by a long shot. The next week, I started noticing her Lexus parked at the edge of the access road more and more often. She'd sit there for 5, 10, sometimes 15 minutes, windows up, phone in hand, pointing it toward my garage or driveway like she was collecting evidence for some kind of court case. Once I walked toward her with a wrench in hand, and she peeled off like she'd seen a ghost. Then came the Facebook post. Someone sent me a screenshot from the neighborhood group, Pine Ridge Watchdog. There was a picture of my truck, taken from a distance, with the caption, "Possible illegal mechanic activity outside HOA boundaries. Not part of our community. Stay alert." The comments were full of HOA folks clutching their pearls about noise pollution and eyesores threatening property values. One lady even asked if anyone knew a zoning officer personally. I'd had enough. I stepped outside, dragged a folding chair to the edge of my driveway, cracked open a beer, and waved directly at Karen's parked Lexus across the road. She didn't wave back. But the next morning, another letter. This one said, "Final warning," in bold. I smiled, walked inside, and ordered 2 more cameras. Because if Karen wanted a show, I was damn well going to give her one. The day started normal. I was up at 6, made coffee, fed the shop cat, Duke, and checked my work orders for the week. I had a parts run planned, nothing major, just a quick trip into town to grab a radiator and some brake calipers. I left around 8, like I'd done a dozen times before, not thinking twice about anything. The sun was out, birds were chirping, and for once it felt like a quiet day. It wasn't. When I got back around 10:30, the first thing I noticed was the gate. The chain that usually wrapped through the latch was lying on the ground, snapped clean like someone had taken bolt cutters to it. I stopped the truck, the rental since my Super Duty wasn't with me, and got out slow, my gut already tightening. And then I saw it. Or didn't see it, more like. My F-350 was gone. I stood there for a solid minute, just staring at the empty patch of gravel where it should have been. No note, no boot prints, nothing but tire marks leading away from the property. My stomach sank. I checked the shop first, then the side yard, then even the tree line, like maybe, just maybe, I was having some kind of episode and had parked it somewhere else. Nope. Someone took my truck. I ran back inside, checked the camera feed. The file was there, but before I could even load it, I heard tires on gravel. A black and white cruiser rolled up my driveway, lights flashing. I blinked, confused, but figured maybe dispatch had already responded to the theft report. I was wrong. The officer stepped out, hand on his weapon, and started barking orders before I could say a word. "Hands where I can see them. Step away from the building." I froze. "Wait, what the hell is this?" "Mike Bennett?" he snapped. "Turn around. Hands on the hood." Next thing I knew, I was cuffed, face down on my own damn truck bay, heart pounding. Another squad car pulled in, then a third. I heard someone say, "Suspect is secured," like I was some armed lunatic, not a guy in grease-stained jeans and a Carhartt hoodie. And then I saw her, Karen, standing by the access road like she'd just won a damn prize. Arms crossed, smug smile. She was talking to one of the officers, pointing toward the driveway, animated like she was recounting the climax of a crime documentary. Apparently, she told them that I had stolen her truck. Claimed she recognized it, my truck, as one that had been stolen from her family months ago. Said she'd spotted it near my garage and had reason to believe I was a danger to the community. She even threw in some crap about suspicious equipment in the bed of the truck. Tools, most likely. Maybe a jerry can? One officer leaned down to me. "You've been accused of grand theft auto and possession of stolen property." I nearly choked. "That's my truck. Registered. Insured. In my name." "Then why is a woman saying it was stolen and giving us a partial VIN?" "I don't know," I growled. "Maybe because she's completely insane?" They didn't laugh. They hauled me to the cruiser, right past Karen, who was now fielding questions from a couple of HOA board members that had shown up for the show. One of them, some smug prick in a polo shirt, snapped a picture of me in cuffs. I was halfway to town when it hit me. The footage. The cameras. I had everything. I looked at the officer in the passenger seat. "You've made a mistake. I've got security footage of everything. You're going to want to see it." He ignored me, but I wasn't bluffing. And I wasn't about to let this lunatic walk away with my truck and my reputation. Not today. I didn't spend long in holding, maybe 2 hours, but it felt like 20. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. The bench colder than a tax auditor's handshake. I sat there in cuffs, jaw clenched, running every frame of that security footage through my mind like it was a lifeline. And it was. Eventually, Officer Morales, one of the few with enough sense not to treat me like a car thief on the run, walked in holding a clipboard and a skeptical expression. "You said you've got video of the incident?" "Yup," I said. "Multiple angles. High res. Want the timestamps? Or do we wait until she claims she teleported it away too?" He didn't crack a smile, but he did unclip the cuffs. "Your lawyer's in the lobby." Thank God for Andrea Hill. 5'2" of pure courtroom caffeine, sharp as a blade and twice as fast. She walked in with her tablet already open and didn't even say hello. "I've reviewed the footage. You're going to want to see this," she said, turning the screen to Morales. There it was, Karen, in full HD, pulling up to my gate with some uniformed meathead from her HOA security crew, probably the same guy who once tried to hand me a mandatory landscaping inspection notice. They stepped out, looked around, then went straight for the lock. She cut it. Not tried, not wiggled it and walked away. No. She took bolt cutters from her trunk and sliced clean through. Next scene? A flatbed tow truck pulling in like this was a repo job. Karen pointed at my truck like she was picking a lobster from a tank. She handed the driver something, looked like a paper with my license plate, and they hitched it up. No hesitation. Then the kicker. She got into the truck after it was unloaded in that HOA impound lot and drove it around the lot like she was inspecting it. 15 minutes later, time-stamped and everything, she dialed 911. Suspect spotted. Vehicle appears to be the one stolen from me, she told dispatch. Approaching now. Please send officers. She even had the nerve to sound worried, like I was about to come out swinging a tire iron. When the playback ended, Morales muttered, Jesus. Andrea folded her arms. I trust you'll be correcting the arrest record. He nodded, slower than I liked. We'll process the release paperwork. Well, this changes things. No kidding. They let me go with a lukewarm apology and a stale coffee. My name was cleared, sure, but my truck was still sitting in some makeshift HOA lot behind their clubhouse, probably parked between confiscated lawn flamingos and mailboxes an inch too tall. Back home, I pulled the full footage from my system and made half a dozen copies, USB, cloud, even a damn DVD just in case the internet exploded. I wasn't taking any chances. Karen had crossed a line that made petty look like a compliment. Later that afternoon, Andrea reached out to the precinct and filed an official complaint for wrongful arrest and false reporting. It wasn't just about my truck anymore. It was about what she did, on purpose, with full knowledge that everything she claimed was a lie. We sent a full packet of footage and documents to the sheriff's office. By sunset, I got a call from Deputy Carson, one of the good ones, who'd seen the footage too. I don't usually say this, Mike, he told me, but you might have just saved some other poor bastard down the line. This woman's nuts. Tell me something I don't know. He laughed, then added, We're opening a case. Don't do anything reckless. I didn't answer right away. I was staring at the freeze frame of Karen's face as she drove off in my truck, grinning like she'd just pulled off the perfect heist. Reckless? No. But I wasn't planning on letting her walk away from this either. By the next morning, I wasn't just angry. I was methodical. My truck was still sitting in that ridiculous HOA impound lot, and even though the cops now believed me, I wasn't going to wait around for justice to sort itself out on cruise control. I called Andrea, and the words barely left my mouth before she said, We're filing. And we did. A civil suit. Full force. Charges. False police report. Criminal trespassing. Theft. Property damage. And, her personal favorite, defamation of character with reputational harm. Turns out, having your mugshot circulate in neighborhood Facebook groups and getting tagged as the local car thief by some suburban tyrant qualifies as emotional and social injury. Who knew? We sent the paperwork to the court, and I made damn sure a copy landed right on Karen's porch via process server, complete with signature. I would have paid extra to see her face when she read the line about intentional public humiliation through deceptive means. But Andrea wasn't done. While I'd been focusing on my truck, she'd started digging. Turns out our dear Karen had been operating her little HOA fiefdom more like a dictatorship with a credit card. She'd paid the tow company using HOA funds, unauthorized, of course. Worse, it wasn't the first time she'd done something like that. A few calls later, Andrea had half a dozen former HOA members on record saying Karen regularly approved expenses without board votes, redirected budget funds, and strong-armed contractors into doing favors for her. One guy swore she once threatened to fine him $2,000 unless he let her hold a private event in his backyard. He didn't. She fined him anyway. So we filed a second complaint, this time with the city. Fraudulent use of HOA funds. Abuse of position. financial mismanagement, the whole enchilada. And because Pine Ridge Acres is technically under municipal oversight, the city sent in a compliance auditor within 72 hours. That's when things really started to unravel. The audit report, what little of it I got to see, was apparently a minefield. Karen had been using the HOA debit card for everything from boutique spa appointments to community decor expenses that turned out to be a $900 chandelier installed in her personal foyer. A few of the receipts listed Airbnb rentals during HOA leadership retreats, even though no such retreats were approved or attended by anyone but her and her yoga instructor. Word spread fast. At first, the HOA board circled the wagons, defending her, insisting this was just a misunderstanding. But by the end of the week, 3 board members resigned. One of them even contacted Andrea directly and offered to testify, said he'd had enough of the threats, the bullying, the manipulation. Meanwhile, I was still getting letters from the HOA. Late fees, citations. One of them accused me of creating an unsafe community environment through aggressive signage. I laughed, took a picture of the sign, "Private property, trespassers will be prosecuted," and sent it back with the caption, "Fully legal. Bite me." But the best part? Neighbors who'd once crossed the street to avoid me were suddenly waving, even stopping to talk. One guy, Rick, I think, told me Karen had fined his wife for excessive sunbathing. Said she cited a vague clause about visual distractions. Another lady thanked me for standing up to her. Said she hadn't parked her RV in her own driveway for 2 years out of fear of a citation. The dominoes were falling. HOA meetings turned into shouting matches. Someone started a Change.org petition to remove Karen as president. Even the neighborhood Facebook group turned against her. And while all that was burning, my truck sat behind their clubhouse like a trophy they'd forgotten they stole. But I hadn't forgotten, and I wasn't nearly done. I walked into court wearing a clean flannel and jeans that didn't smell like axle grease. Andrea insisted I at least try to look like someone the jury might trust with a full sentence. Fair enough. Across the aisle sat Karen, decked out in a white blazer like she was here for a real estate awards banquet. Her expression flickered between smug and strained, like she couldn't decide if she was about to win or puke. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, a few city officials, and, hilariously, half of the Pine Ridge HOA membership. Some looked pissed. Others looked like they were at a damn theater. Judge Franklin was an older guy with a deep voice and no patience for nonsense. We started with Andrea laying out our claims: trespassing, false reporting, unlawful seizure of property, defamation, and emotional distress. She was calm, surgical, like she was gutting a fish without spilling a drop. Then came the footage. The courtroom was dead quiet as the TV screen lit up and showed Karen in full HD, bolt cutters in hand, sawing through my gate chain like a woman on a mission. Then came the tow truck, her handing over my license plate number, the smug little victory lap in my truck, and finally, her fake emergency call. I watched the jury. One guy's jaw dropped. A woman up front actually whispered, "What the hell?" Karen's lawyer, a tired-looking man who I'm guessing hadn't seen most of this footage until this morning, looked like he was begging the floor to swallow him whole. Then Karen took the stand. It was glorious. She started with the usual. I was acting in good faith. I believed the truck was stolen. I was protecting the community. Andrea let her go on for maybe 5 minutes before calmly pulling out HOA meeting minutes, showing Karen never had board approval for any of the actions she took. No votes, no discussions, just her signature over and over. Then Andrea asked, "Ms. Malloy, did you use HOA funds to pay for the tow?" Karen squirmed. "Well, technically, it was under discretionary." And did you also charge $927.35 to the HOA card for what you listed as community lighting enhancements, which turned out to be a crystal chandelier installed in your personal foyer? Karen froze. Andrea turned to the judge. Your Honor, we have receipts. It only got worse. Karen tried to pivot, claiming she was being targeted because she was a strong female leader. Judge Franklin shut that down real quick. This is a court of law, he said dryly. Not a soapbox. Karen's composure unraveled. She blamed the security guy. Then the tow driver. Then me. Claimed I set her up with hidden cameras. At one point, she implied the truck didn't even belong to me, despite the registration being filed under my name and Vian. By the time Andrea finished cross-examination, Karen was practically vibrating in her seat. The verdict didn't take long. Guilty of trespassing. Guilty of false reporting. Liable for defamation and damages. Ordered to pay me $75,000 in compensation, plus court costs and attorney fees. But the cherry on top? Judge Franklin referred the financial misconduct straight to the city for criminal investigation and ordered her removed as HOA president, effective immediately. The courtroom buzzed. Reporters whispered into phones. HOA members looked at each other like they'd just been released from cult duty. Karen didn't speak as she left. Her face had the hollow look of someone who finally realized the world wasn't going to bend around their delusions. And my truck? It was released back into my hands that same afternoon, untouched, unscratched, and parked right where it belonged. Home. 3 months later, I got a letter in the mail with the county seal stamped across the top. I thought it was jury duty. Turned out to be way more interesting. Karen's property, her precious corner lot shrine to superiority, was being listed for public auction due to delinquent taxes. Apparently, while she was busy throwing HOA money at chandeliers and yoga retreats, she'd forgotten to pay her own bills. The county had seized the property, and now they were looking for a buyer. I laughed so hard, I nearly dropped my coffee. Andrea called it poetic justice. I called it opportunity. Through a third-party LLC, because I'm not entirely without class, I made a bid, a modest one. The place was overpriced, but the story was worth every penny. And wouldn't you know it? No one else bid. Karen's little kingdom had become toxic real estate. 2 weeks later, I owned it. Not just the dirt and the bricks, but the mailbox, the hedges she'd once fined a neighbor over, and the house where she held all her little HOA council meetings. Now mine. When I sent the leasing documents to her forwarding address, turns out she was crashing with her sister in a condo across town, I included a friendly note. New terms. Rent due on the 1st. No late payments. No chandeliers. I didn't expect her to sign, but she did. The woman who once tried to have me arrested for stealing my own truck now signed a lease agreeing to pay me $2,400 a month for the privilege of staying in her former empire. She didn't even look at me when we met at the notary's office, just scribbled her name like it pained her to hold the pen. I didn't gloat. Not much, anyway. I did, however, host a cookout the following weekend. My place. Open invite to the whole neighborhood. Folks brought beer, potato salad, and stories. Lots of stories. About Karen, about the HOA, about the years they'd all spent walking on eggshells. Turns out, I wasn't the only one she'd tried to steamroll. I was just the first one who said hell no and meant it. The best part? My truck sat right in the front yard, parked proudly by the fence she once said ruined the community sightline. I even added a bumper sticker just for her. This truck is 100% stolen, according to Karen. No one's touched my mailbox since.